Brilliant, 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 brilliant. We be live. We be live. We be live. I like that. I like being live. I like being alive too. Yeah, yeah. Most exciting. Most exciting. Uh, we'll get going in a minute. It's always a little slow in the beginning. I hope you guys realize that. Just skip a few minutes till I get all the sharing done. Normally Bina takes this time to share thoughts for the day and make an introduction, which is very helpful. And, in case you're not aware of what I'm doing, marking it as featured. All right, sometimes Facebook is a little slow. Like I clicked on the three little dots there to bring up that menu, in the top right-hand corner of the post. And it's just spinning, it's just looping, it's just waiting to load. All right, there we go. All right, so pin to featured, and then I've got to edit the post to add the description, the full description there. When I do the preemptive, when I go to on Zoom, I say go live on Facebook. It gives me a little couple of, I can put in the heading and a description, but the description is very limited there. I don't know why it changed. It used to be that I could put more stuff in there, but it's not there anymore now. So now I have to edit it to get the full description in. And then of course Facebook can be just slow, and I clicked on that and it wasn't working, so I had to get out of it and do it again. All right, so update the description and then add post to guide. In the guides in group. By the way, I don't. For one thing, those guides aren't really accessible uh, on on the phone. So if you mostly come on Facebook via the phone, the guides don't work there. And secondly, they can be a little tricky to access sometimes. I don't know, it's a little problematic. So adding it to the guide, and then it takes you out of the screen to the guides. I'm gonna get back out of that screen, and then just like it myself or love it, and then share to my own timeline. Because some people follow me rather than on the group. So then that sometimes, Facebook will tell them, hey, you know what, Syl Sabastian is live right now. And then lastly, I share it to my page, which I've got to switch to my Nobelia identity. I don't know why. It's just, it's Facebook. And then, so it's a little slow. See, I clicked switch there. Here it comes. All right, so paste and then share. And then you gotta wait for it to finish sharing. It doesn't always. There we go. And then it says leave page. And the reason I do this now and not later is because when it's on my page, it's dynamically linked to my website. So when I make a post to my page, it goes immediately shows on my website. So now I'm live on my website also, right there on the first opening page. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. All right, so now I've got to switch my identities back again. And then the last thing to do is click on the post itself, so that I can, like on the video. Come on out. Right. Click on the video and to make it kind of, why is it not doing it? To zoom in on the post. Uh, I gotta turn but because when I do that, and it shows the comments on the right-hand side, then I see them in real time, as opposed to if I'm just looking at the post in the timeline of the group, then and the comments are underneath, they're not in real time. So just one of those little oddities and peculiarities that come with everything. So Norma, I hope you're coming. And well, you know, Norma likes it when I give her a link, so I'll do that. Uh, I'll give her a specific link to although lately she's been coming via, I think, via the featured. So I haven't really needed that because she's actually been ahead of me But anyway, here we go, Norma. There's the link for you. It says she was active 20 minutes ago, so she may not be on right now. Stuff happens. And Bina's still out gallivanting, on vacationing. So, yeah. She had a fantastic train journey, lots of magic, which she said. I briefly spoke to her. I took a chance. I said, I caught it just before she was going to fall asleep. And she said, it was real magic, real magic. So I'm very keen to hear that. Very keen to hear that. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip. Just in a sense of things happened that were directly connected to her moreness, right? That's always a great thrill and a great joy when that happens. That's very special. That's really, 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 really special. All right. You know what? Let me also send that link to Cher, because she said she wanted to be here and she asked me for the time. So she's in a different time zone. Uh, but she's not online either. So, but anyway, just in case, just in case, just in case. You have it there, sure. I'll be very, very thrilled to see you. But stuff happens especially when you're doing something on a daily basis like this. It's very, very difficult for most people to be able to be available. Uh, even once a week is difficult. Our lives are very full. So, when you want to connect to somebody, typically you have to make an appointment, right? It's amazing. It's amazing. So, to me, it's like, again, I want to repeat, I don't do this for people watching, but I do enjoy when they come. It's a great joy. It's a great bonus. But and just as to make a point for other people doing regular lives, keep doing them. It doesn't matter. People see them later, see them afterwards, if that's important to you. But keep doing them, because it's very difficult for people to come regularly. It's very, very hard. I mean, if you watch people who do have regular high viewership, they have an enormous following, you know, tens and tens and tens of thousands of people. And out of those, you may get a couple of dozen or a couple of hundred, right? So it's always a numbers game, yeah. Uh, right. Let's get going here. Uh, oh, I do want to say something, just a thought of the day, kind of. This came up, one of the Way of Impeccability participants called me. Um, I just wanted, just to touch, and just it's not a formal session call. At any rate, and so we talked about stuff, and one key point, there was a need for deliberateness in their living, right? To be much more deliberate. Now, Way of Impeccability is all about, uh, it's a toolbox for deliberate living. So this is an aim and a goal of Way of Impeccability, to live deliberately, right? Which means that you're always being thoughtful, yes? Which means that you are doing things because you want to, and when you're being deliberate, you're not only doing it because you want to, but you are doing it in full consciousness, right? This is what deliberate means, right? That you know what you're doing, you know why you are doing it, you want to do it, and you are aware that you are doing it. Yes? Deliberate living, incredibly powerful. It enhances one's life tremendously. Plus, it avoids us being inadvertent jackasses, right? Which happens all the time. Hey, somebody gave me a heart there. Wherever you are, thank you very much. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I never noticed it before, but the little heart floated up. I'm like, hey, what's this? So wherever you are, please say hello in comments. That I just love it. Yeah, I love it when people say hello. It really helps. Then I feel like I'm speaking to somebody, and that leverages me. Anyway, so part of deliberate living is learning this capital A, anticipation, right? It's a very particular skill because it involves extrapolation, looking at implications. There's a lot to it. I'm not going to go into the details of anticipation. Just the concept alone, if you start to apply it, you'll automatically come to all of those things. And this was for the participant who came, this was the doing, the application, right? Always, You understand? We had a long conversation, and the and as a takeaway, I said, fine, okay, we went to all this, I understand, but the way to do this and implement the actual practical part of it is practice and apply capital A anticipation. Right now, why do I mention this? What has this got to do with the story? If we pay attention to Biella and to, like in this case, Elluminia, other new nobles, Ursula's learning to do this. She kind of has this a bit already from her business things. But this is very powerful, right? Capital A anticipation. So when we come here to this part that we are at now, right? Where Biella, sorry, where Illuminia is joining up with Ursula and Hyla and Biella, right? It's innate in Illuminia to practice anticipation. It's something all the new nobles do. It's something that as aspirants they train to do, they practice doing, right? And so this is something that's innate already. It's automatic. She does it without consciously even thinking about it. So as Illuminia is walking up, right? Because Biala sees Illuminia approaching, right? And Illuminia was looking for them. So she's seen them before they saw her. And so she has, quite a bit of time in real time. Who knows? Maybe half a minute, 20 seconds. Who knows? Doesn't matter. But it's more than 1 or 2 seconds. That is a long, long time internally, right? To process and assess and observe. So by the time Illumina is getting there, she's sussed out this because of this anticipation mindset, right? She's looking ahead. So she's sussed out this relationship. So yes, it may seem to Ayla like she's doing it immediately, but it's not that immediate. Even if she only had 1 or 2 seconds, there's still a long time to assess and absorb and look at things, right? This is part of that anticipation. And the more you practice it, the quicker it goes, right? I mean, you start anticipating in your own dialogue, your own conversation. You thinking in the pauses in between, right? So a microsecond or half a second, that's a long time. A lot happens in there, and they practice at this. And if you pay attention to the story as a whole, you'll see how this is coming about in the dialogues. And many of the dialogues here, right, are like the dialogue between Camillus and Biella. Those are real time conversations that I've written into the story. I've simply changed the place and the location and described other stuff. But the actual conversation took place in real time. Yeah. Camellia spoke, and there was a response, right? I wrote them into the story. Same thing with Hyla, right? Camellia's Hyla, the conversations are both conversations from real, actual people in real time, right? And yes, they were typed, so there's a little bit more pause there than a verbal conversation. But in verbal conversations, it's a lot more repetition. So in the end, you get the same amount, right? And people go umming and ahhing, and they tend to say superfluous things a lot more than you do in a type conversation. So you have a lot of time to think because they've already said it, and then they just re-saying it, and struggling with it. A lot of time to think. So it doesn't matter in the typed or in verbal, same process, right? But when you pay attention, you'll see this anticipation coming through all the time. It's very, very powerful, particularly in Biella, right? Very, very powerful. All right. So we're on this point here now where Haila comes to Haila shares, or at least Haila is internally responding to this gift of friendship, right? A gift beyond imagining. Friendships on Haila's world were not only treasured, they were venerated. And this is also so on Nobelia, right? On Nobelia, though, they don't make the distinction between individual friendships. There's no particular elevation of individuals. Every single new noble and aspirant is treated as a long time, deep, profound friend. The friendship level is the same with an aspirant, a new aspirant, than it is with a long time friend like Illuminia. The only difference is that you have a history a little bit, right? And that history makes for a convenience of communication sometimes, because you can use your history as reference points, right? Now, they're acutely aware of not doing this too much, because then you also get too bound to your history, right? So it's very important. Good, 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 good. Wonderful morning, Sher. Sher's joined us. This is fantastic. All right. Perfect time, Sher, to join, because I'm just about to start reading here. Now, let me ask you this. I know Norma's preference is that I don't screen share, but I'm assuming you prefer it when I do screen share so that you can read along with me. Yes, Sher? I'll wait for a yes. Little pause there. Yes. Okay. All right. Brilliant. Yeah. I again see this. It's inherent in me, and it's part of the training to not assume. Yes, even though I was 95% sure that Sher did this, I still check. Yes, I mean, if I didn't have the opportunity to wait for Sher's response, I would act on that, right? But if I have the opportunity, always check. It builds your it builds your own confidence in your own assumption probabilities, right? Because you keep checking. Thank you, Sher. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is just wonderful stuff. It's very, very cool. All right, so we're at this part here now where Hyla is reacting to this profoundness of friendship. And that's what I was trying to say. That on Nobelia, everybody is a deep, intimate friend, because you have no secrets. And you know that everybody there has the same basic intent as you, the intent to moreness. And it's not just a hobby, it's not a side thing, it is a deep, deep passion, right? It is a need, and not just a passion, it's a need, right? It goes to that extent to take themselves to the moreness, to as much as they can possibly be. They addicted to self-improvement, enhancing awareness, etc. Right? So when you have this, plus how can you not be intimately connected? Plus, they are acutely aware that everybody who's there has deep, deep, profound, good, good, goodness to them. Yes, that's it. They know this. So how can you not be friends with people like that? Yeah. It's not possible. It's not possible to not be deeply and intimately connected, whether you know the person or not. It's irrelevant. When you know what they are about, the details don't matter. The details are completely irrelevant. You know what your particular hobbies and tastes and likes are. That doesn't matter. Plus, over time, and sometimes in this culture, that you change your own hobbies and likes and tastes deliberately. Right? Yeah. The journey to moreness is a need. Yes. Yes, sure. Yes. Yes. Thank you for repeating and re-emphasizing this. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I want to emphasize. I want to absolutely emphasize, just because this this need, this desire for self-improvement and moreness is a need, it does not imply that anyone on Nobelia, any aspirant or any new noble, thinks that everybody should have this. Absolutely not. It's one of the first things that the aspirants are uh, are are shared with, right? And there's not direct teaching, but this is one of the few exceptions, right? When you become an aspirant, right, from day go, it's pointed out to you that this is something that you like doing, and you're going to be joining with others who particularly like this. But that doesn't mean it should be so for everybody. They emphasize this over and over and over again, and this is why the new nobility is such a unique society, because they're a corporation, right? And they're all members of the corporation. So, like when you come as an aspirant, you could think of them as trainees or interns. Yeah, they're not officially there, but still. But one of the great advantages of the new nobility as a corporation is in terms of their PR. Yes, they are an organization that is geared towards doing moreness, right? They're promoting being. So because they're a benefit corporation, right? So this is what they do. They promote being. And what allows them, what the corporation allows them to do, and because they're a very successful corporation, very wealthy corporation, they're the most wealthy corporation in the whole agglomeration by far. All right, but that just happens to be because of all the inherent sensibility and many reasons. But the point I want to make is it allows them to do public service announcements, right? PSAs. And one of the PSAs that they do is to point out that and to make it clear on a regular basis in different ways that being a new noble is not something that they push and advertise. They don't recruit. Why? Because it's not for everybody. It happens to be, just happens to be, this is the people who do it, right? So, and they also, and they do it very subtly. They don't say it directly. They do it through promoting the understanding that effort reward is a circle, right? There's very key point this. Let me get out of the screen sharing before I finish this point because it's now just come up in things, right? I mean, sure, you're familiar with effort reward, but you know, this stuff can always bear repeating, right? So if you say how much effort is worth a particular reward. Now, I watch the Olympics. I enjoy watching the Olympics. It's great. Oh, it's coming up this year again, right? It's Olympic year this year, right? I believe so, right? Summer Olympics this year. Anyway, uh, where is it again? Where is it? Is it in Tokyo? Anyway, somebody can maybe let me know. Right. So effort reward. I watch the Olympics and I see people get their gold medals and stuff. Now, that's not necessarily why I watch it, but you know, it gets included. Well, I don't really care about that. That's not why I watch. But anyway, uh, but I said, man, you know, good for you. You got your gold medal. The effort to get that gold medal, is it worth it to me? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. I was like, man, I think all that effort to get that gold medal. It's like, wow, really? No. To me, that's just crazy. But it's worth it to them, right? Now, can I say they're wrong in saying it's worth it to them? No. That's what they like doing. That's what's important to them. It's what they want to do, right? For them, the effort is worth the reward. Wow, what did I thought I heard like a join Zoom sound. Oh, wow. Okay. Anyhow, so this is very important to understand, right? And likewise, you know, somebody writes a book and you say, wow, yeah, I know lots of people who want to write books, yeah, but then when they start writing, they're like, holy moly. Okay, they don't say holy moly. They usually say holy something else, right? But I'm trying not to swear, trying to be very good. This wonderful Bina doesn't swear. Now, again, she doesn't mind if I do or others do. She's not hung up on about it. It's just a particular moreness that she has. I see it as a moreness, right? And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with swearing. I do, and that's very appropriate sometimes. But but it's very useful to be able and powerful to be able to do it consciously and deliberately, right? So we're talking about deliberateness and anticipation. And see, I was running that anticipation loop and I saw my need to say holy whatever, you know, rather than holy moly. And so I changed it, right? So just use of anticipation, break your habits. But anyway, I'm saying that, you know, people starting to write the book and then they get into it and they realize, oh my goodness, this is like way more effort than I ever imagined, right, Cher? Cher's written the book, she's busy on the second one. It's a lot of work, right? And I say, man, is the effort worth the reward? Hell no. Was it worth it to Cher? Is it worth it, been worth it to me? Yes. Yeah. We think it's worthwhile, right? So this important, my point I'm making is that when it comes to effort and reward, this is a purely individual decision. And nobody can say it's right or wrong. Nobody. It just cannot because it's choice. It's just however it works out to you. Yeah. And if you're not motivated in that way, okay, maybe you could say, well, work on your motivation or whatever. But really, these are arbitrary things, right? Yes, it's on the book. I was showing that book. There's a lot more effort than you imagine. That's what that yes is for there, I'm sure. I'm sure. Right? Uh, this is super powerful. But when we really understand this, and when you unhook from the superiority paradigm, wow, now everything changes. So these PSAs from the new Nobility Corporation, which point out that effort reward is a circle, they make people feel okay about where they are at, right? So they also have universal basic income, so you can pretty much do whatever you like. And most people follow their passions. Like in Sher's case, her passion is learning, and so she'll, if Sher didn't have to earn a living, what, and you got income, right? That what would you be doing with your time? You'd be doing programs like Way-of-Impeccability, more of them. You'd be practicing that more. You'd be following on your art and doing crafts for the joy of it, not for as an income. You would be writing more books, whatever, right? But you'd be following your passions. Now, for some people, their passion is just sitting around watching TV. Effort versus reward. If that's what works for you, great. Yeah. That doesn't mean it's wrong. Yeah. Think about it. Think about it. Think how much of our economy depends on people being fans. A profoundly huge part. You would never have any professional sports if there weren't fans, right? So when you start to think of fans as being a job, wow. So this universal basic income is basically paying you to be a fan, to be a consumer, because to be a consumer is also part of our economy that's vitally necessary, right? And of course that's how me as a producer of content of some kind, right, as a writer of stuff, this is how I get feedback. Okay, I don't write for that reason, but for most people, it's very helpful. And when you have fans, they let you know you're reaching, you're connecting, you're interconnecting, and all this, right? So they perform a vitally valuable function. And really good fans will give you fantastic feedback. Well, this chapter was really good. It really resonated with me, got to me, but this one, man, it missed me somehow. I didn't quite get it, right? Oh, okay. So they help improve communication and sharing and all this, right? And understanding and awareness. They all contribute, right? So when we understand this fantasticness of effort reward, it's just absolutely brilliant. Hang on, let me just check something here. Is somebody trying to join? I keep hearing that like little tone sound like somebody's trying to join, but I guess not. I was hoping maybe Bina was coming or anyway. So my point that I'm getting at is right, effort reward. It's a circle. And this is super, super powerful to understand, right? And when we get into this, we'll see more and more how that comes about. All right. So now we get back to the actual story here, where we're on this point of friendships and how, and on this deep friendships, it's just kind of with everybody on Nobelia. But all right, in Aila's case now, there's an extra bond, right? To say that, okay, I've accepted your gesture of friendship in the way that you mean it, which means that I will set aside more time for you than I otherwise would. For, like Biella, with anybody that's asking for her time, she'll go by the attunement of it. She won't set it aside. But now this is an extra factor that's into the attunement calculation, right? Or the attunement awareness, the attunement connectivity. It basically runs itself the more you get attuned. So this is very key, very key. And also I want to make another nice point here. Uh, all right, so hang on, let me just check with Norma. I am on but can't see my post. You mean your comment on this on the thing? Okay. Let me see, Norma. Uh, are you seeing with the colors behind me? You may be on. I don't know why it wouldn't be able. If you follow the link, uh, hmm, I don't know, Norma. I don't know. Maybe just refresh it or go to the group and go to featured and join that way. I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to see your comments, right? Now, Norma, did you make the comments in the comments to the live, not comments? No, you didn't make the comments in Messenger. No, I don't know. That's very odd, Norma. That's very odd. All right. I don't know. Well, uh, yeah, no, I don't see your comment. Yeah, if that's what you mean by the post. Yeah, yeah, I'm not seeing it there. Like I say, just try and connect in a different way. Go to group, the Sassy group, and then go to featured, and then click on it that way, and then make a comment and see. Yeah. All right. While you do that, Norma, I'll watch out for your comment. I'll watch out for your comment. I'm glad you're here, Norma. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. I want to continue with the story, and let's go screen share. And I want to pay attention here to something that's come up before, but it's a little different this time, right? So I'll read the paragraph and then I'll comment. Hayley's tears touched the others, drawing tears from them in turn. They all hugged Hayley deeply, sensing more to the release. Through her empathy, Illuminia started laughing. I want to stop here. It's just that first part, right? Hayley's tears touched the others, drawing tears from them in turn. They all hugged Hayley deeply, sensing more to the release. Now, if you've been following along with us, you'll say, but, wait a second, so hang on a second. You have been talking about not commiserating with others. But isn't Biella and Ursula and Illuminia kind of commiserating with Hylia? No, not at all, right? Commiserating is very different to being empathetic, right? Massively different. There's a huge, huge difference. This, these tears weren't tears of self pity, tears of complaining, tears of grief, tears of sorrow. No, none of that, right? This were tears of release, right? So they all hugged Ayla deeply, sensing more to the release. Right? It's very specifically mentioned there. So they see this, and this is these are almost more like tears of joy than they are anything else, right? When we understand that, now it changes, yes? And we see things in a different way. Yeah. So understand that this isn't them commiserating with Ayla because this is a different kind of tears, right? Yes, it's tears of relief, and there's a lot in it, but the tears of release are very close to tears of joy, right? Just all that moreness coming out. Yeah. So this is something they can share tears with because now this is appropriate empathy, right? Feeling it, right? And then Illuminia says she's taking that right through her empathy. Illuminia started laughing, a joyful, merry delight of mirth. We are friends, new friends, and here we are sobbing like babies. Right? Actually, these are capital F friends now. And here we are sobbing like babies. She grabbed their hands, and the trees are about to start a great song. But I just want to emphasize on this point that Illuminia shifts it, right? She takes that energy of them empathizing with Hayla, and she takes that same energy and she simply transforms it into a more joyful, more fun energy. Same energy, right? Same connectivity, but there's more. Why? Because it's a little bit more encompassing and as a bit easier to deal with and it's more fun than emoting, right? That's appropriate, yes, but not not for everything, right? So she wants to connect them to something where it's more appropriate. And also just from a pure longer term, you release, you get it out, and then you've got to shift. And you need to learn to have that ability to shift. Because yes, a release is appropriate, but not for a very long time. Once it's done, it's out. Okay, shift, move on. We tend not to. We tend to hang on to it, and that's not appropriate, right? So the ability to recognize appropriateness. Okay, done, good. It's out. Now I can shift, right? Very important. Don't get stuck in a particular emotion. It's not always appropriate on the longer term, right? So very important from an appropriateness point of view to have this ability to shift. We are friends, new friends. And here we are sobbing like babies. She grabbed their hands. And the trees are about to start a great song. Come, come, big babies. Illuminia cajoled playfully. They laughed with her, wiping their faces as she dragged them towards a massive branch, connecting the great tree they were on to another. Right? So, right. This should be giant trees, right? Not just the regular trees, the giant trees. The giant trees are about to start a great song. So she's obviously saying, here's something special going on, right? Something important. So she's letting them know, right? This is different. I felt it on the way up. I came to tell you I arranged the free chat for tomorrow. Now, this is earlier in the story. The free chat was supposed to be today. So Illuminator just took it on herself to rearrange it for tomorrow, right? Just seemed appropriate somehow. And that's it. Biella doesn't even comment on it. It's just, well, duh, you know. Yeah, that sound again. Who wants to join? If you want to join, please tell me in comments. Then I can't see you there anyway. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know why I'm hearing that sound. Oh, very interesting. Okay. Norma, I haven't seen your comment yet. Again, try joining via the featured the featured link. Yeah, please, Norma. I'm keen to see your comments, Norma. I love your comments. They're very important to me. All right, am I still screen sharing? Yes, I am. All right, what is this here? Oh, this is. I was watching a documentary here. Seems a bit inappropriate. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Sorry, it's just on the Second World War and they're showing the concentration camps and stuff. Anyway, so being appropriate. Right. She smiled. Oh, sorry. Um, Illumina's intuition was remarkable, never failing to amaze Biella. She grinned at Taylor. It is the way of our lives, she said softly, gently. It always seems improbable, unlikely, impossible, to us as well. It is a constant magic that flows, that we are connected to by being appropriate in the greatest context. Right? So now she's saying a bunch of different things here. She's pointing out that Illuminia's changing of the time of the free chat, just one-sided thing of her own accord, not even consulting with Biella, because it was appropriate. That's a magic in itself. But there's more to this comment. She's not only pointing to that appropriateness, she's pointing to appropriateness in itself. When the more you tune into being appropriate, the more you are tuning into a greater connectivity, right? And that greater connectivity is oh, good. All right. Wonderful, Norma. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Can I move your thing here? No, I can't. Okay, so I'll just watch. I'll just watch for comments in Messenger. Right? Actually, let me close this. Then it'll come up, and they won't both come up. All right. So this appropriateness, Biella is here connecting it to Illuminia's intuition, right? And really, what intuition here is meaning is connectedness, right? The more you follow appropriateness, the more connected you become to everything around you. Because how do you know what's appropriate if you're not aware of the context, if you're not aware of goals and motivations? You cannot determine what is appropriateness, what is appropriate. So this philosophy of appropriateness as a behavior and the application of it is going to make you more connected and thus more intuitive, right? And that's just another way of thinking what intuition is. It's a connectedness to more than what we can process consciously. And the new nobility, though, they make a point of looking at when they come to an intuitive decision, and they will retroactively look at the process, right? And you can do this yourself. Just take that microsecond or half a second right before the intuition and stretch it out. You're going to see, oh, I was thinking this and then that and then that and that. Is an actual chain. I call it an implication chain, right? And then we get to the end result of that. But it seems intuitive, seems like just a jump from I didn't know to I know. It's not actually a jump. You're actually just doing that in that implication chain, which is okay, this, then that, then that, then that, and you basically work it out. But it happens so quickly that we're not aware of it. But if you pay attention, right, and the moment you have that intuitive thought, you have to do it right then, right in that moment. You have to be kind of aware and be kind of waiting for it so that you can go back and remember. It's like a dream, right? If you don't consciously lock in the dream and bring it from the dream brain into the regular brain, you forget about it. Same thing with that time just before the intuition. You have to kind of stretch it out and look at, and you'll be astonished at how you were putting things together. You didn't just jump from A to Z directly. No, you went all the way through all the entire alphabet to get there, right? Because, but it's an implication alphabet, right? One follows after the other. Right, it's an implication chain. We are geniuses at that implication. It's so innate for most people they don't even realize it, right? But it's very good to pay attention because sometimes our implication chain, right? Because it's implication, there's always a risk that it might not exactly be so, which is why you have to be careful with your intuition, because it's not always, it doesn't always work out, right? And that's because implications are work on probabilities. An implication is what is most likely, not likely, most likely, not likely, right? So it's a probability, not a definite, not an absolute, right? So in other words, sometimes it could be not so, right? So be aware of this and be careful of intuition, in other words, right? Be aware that it is intuition is a very, very well educated guess. Still, just because it's very, very well educated and it's still a guess to some degree or another, right? No, very important to be aware of. Very, very, very important to be aware of. All right. I felt it on the way up. I came to tell you I arranged the free chat for tomorrow. Just seemed appropriate somehow. She smiled. Illuminia's intuition was remarkable, never failing to amaze Biella. She grinned at Taylor. It is the way of our lives, she said softly, gently. It always seems improbable, unlikely, impossible to us as well. It is a constant magic that flows, that we connect to by being appropriate in the greatest context. And that's very key, by being appropriate in the greatest context, not just our immediate context, the me context, or me and my whoever's around me, me in a little space that I'm sitting in. No, right? Greatest context, right? She left it there. More magic was evidently about to unfold. This is a big topic that Biella could share much more on, but now is not the time. Appropriateness says later, right? She just gives enough so that later, if Hayley does a review of the whole day, she, oh wow, what was that about being appropriate in the greatest context? She can think about it, come back, ask more, or figure it out for herself, right? There's enough there to put it together if you do that. One of the techniques and practices of the new nobility that, again, there are things that are specifically uh, taught to aspirants, like Way of Impeccability. And this is actually in Way of Impeccability. It is when you come to habit management and mood management, one of the techniques to help deal with this is to do a review at the end of the day, like before you go to sleep. Review your whole day. Now, there's a lot more to it. There's a particular ways of reviewing it, but I don't want to get into the detail of that. But just, doing a review and then, you use application techniques anyway. It's a lot to it. It's very powerful. The moreness to it. But that review just in itself is very powerful, right? What happened? What was significant? What was important? What could I have done differently? Etc. Right? Very, very useful. Come, here, Illuminia urged eagerly. This is the best part. It is beginning, but will take a while to build, enough to explain. She grinned, aware of the mystery she was presenting, a mischief in her eye. So here we see again Illuminia's anticipation, right? She's come prepared for this. Yeah. This is she's got a plan in mind, and part of this plan is going to unfold a little later. But part of the plan too is something that happens that the new nobility do automatically, right? If I know something is exciting is about to come, I'm going to share this in a way that maximizes joy. Yes. So she's deliberately creating a bit of mystery and anticipation because now she's leveraging their attention. Yes. See, all there's a logic to it. There's a greater moreness to it. She's not just acting willy-nilly, right? And this is very powerful. It's very powerful. But of course, she also is being spontaneous because in that moment, this is what's most appropriate, even though she's thought about it before. right? So she has spontaneity and forethought combined. It's very powerful. It's a very magical way to be. Yeah. This is a special spot. Nobelia is a special place. New nobles do nothing casually. Right? So again, because there's a bit of time pressure, not too much, she's got enough time to explain, but she she says things like new nobles do nothing casually. That's a very loaded statement there. Lots involved in that, right? And in that she can elaborate on that a lot, right? Particularly Biella, but she just throws it out there because it's a key, it's a baseline, it's a part of the foundation that everything she's saying is built on, right? And you can extrapolate from there and figure it out for yourself. They love art, all kinds of art. They love to take things to the maximum and to not leave anything out or undone when they can. So this year, all right, this Nobelia is a special place. New nobles do nothing casually. They love art, all kinds of art. They love to take things to the maximum, to not leave anything out or undone when they can. This is an incredibly fantastic synopsis of the new nobility, right? It's coming at the new nobility from a particular angle. But when you understand that they love art, all kinds of art, and that they love to take things to the maximum and to not leave anything out or undone, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's interesting, Norma. Wow. Okay. Norma says there's a block on her apparently. Well, you just comment over here, sweetness, and that's fine. You just comment over here. No problem. I see them when they come up. You see it like now, I think you can see on the screen share. See, I minimize you. And then when you make a comment, it opens up automatically. Right? So then I'm seeing Cher's comments when she comments, and I'll see yours when you comment. So all good. To get back to this point, this encapsulation of the new nobility. It's not the entirety, but it's very powerful because it tells you a lot. But it's particularly it's a sharing of how the new nobility are that is pertinent to what's to come, right? And what Illuminia is about to share. When you understand this, that they love art and they take things to the maximum and they don't lead to, you get to understand that this whole project that she's talking about now with the giant trees, you see the underlying intent and motivations and mindset that makes for a project like this to actually happen in the way it is, right? To understand that it is taken to the maximum. It's done thoroughly. Nothing is left out. It's done as maximally as is possible, right? Because they do have the resources to do this again, which is why it's so fantastic that the society is in that corporate as the corporate aspect to it, right? I mean, when you walk around on Nobelia, it's just like in any place, any society, a general society, but it has that extra special quality because now it allows them as a group. Right? If I've got an idea, like if I'm in a corporation and I got something that's going to enhance the corporation, well, I bring it up at whatever meeting it is for new ideas. I'm assuming in your enlightened corporation you have such meetings. I know most don't, but I would hope anybody who has a corporation puts this in there, right? Um, and not just a suggestion box, because anybody who's put out a suggestion box, actually in a corporation, I pity the person who has to open those suggestions, right? The reality is, it's really sad. They get the most absurd, ridiculous things, nasty stuff, just, F you and stuff like that. Yes, you get genuine people putting in good, but mostly people use it as like anonymous graffiti. It's quite fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating to realize that in your corporation, you've got a lot of people that are walking around with psychologies and intents and just a lot of stuff that's not particularly good and healthy. Really fascinating. Anyway, just a little aside there. So if you really want to have suggestions, you need to have an environment and a forum where such things can be discussed without consequence, right? So I would absolutely recommend that you do not have one of your management lead the discussion on new ideas, that you have an outsider come, somebody who's very adept at listening, at having, and it's like a therapy thing, but group therapy. Okay, you can say anything and it's not going to be held against you. It's kind of free, right? And because it's not to somebody from the corporation, all right, this is just what you do here, right? And you can throw out all these ideas, good, bad, silly, doesn't matter, right? And there's a particularity to it that you can actually train for, right? Part of the brainstorming procedures. But anyway, just to go off on a little mini tangent, there is something I highly recommend if you have a corporation, right? Very useful. Now, of course, on Nobelia, if you have something that's, man, this will be cool to do, right? You'll put it out there and you'll have people, and you'll listen and people will listen. And if you get enough for this, it's not like you're trying to farm support. If it's a good idea, people say, yeah, that's a great idea, right? And then you go, and now as you can use corporate resources, you have this available to you, and you start doing it. That's it. You get people to help you and join you, and you don't even need to have everybody. As long as just even if you think it's enough, this you have this freedom to do what's appropriate in the culture. Why? Because if you're a new noble, you are trusted with that responsibility to do what's appropriate. So many new nobles, it might be an individual project. In this case, there were lots involved, right? Many new nobles involved. It's a very big project. But even if it's just you, it's not a problem. You do what's appropriate. Now, if what you are doing is going to affect others, then you will try and get some consensus, right? Like if you're going to be building something and utilizing a spot that couldn't be used later on, stuff like that, right? Obviously, you're going to look and be considerate and appropriate, right? And then you might say, hey, I want to build this castle on top of this hill over here. And then you might have a vote on it, right? And okay, majority say, okay, cool, or not, right? All right, go. There we go. Now, it's very unlikely that if you do put it up for a vote, it doesn't get approved. Why? Because you're really thinking it through and you are going to take in mind the appropriateness of everything. What a fantastic culture, right? What an incredible, incredible culture where every individual in that culture has the ability to be appropriate and responsible and thorough and sensible and sober and think that way. I mean, yes, it takes a lot of training, right, to become a new noble. Just it's not like you go and do a course. You know, I see this, by the way. Just basically pay attention when it comes to people that you're hiring or just hiring, right? Like somebody you're taking a course with. Well, essentially you're hiring them to give you some value, right? I say, yeah, well, what's your expertise here? Well, I went and did a course on it. Ask how long that course was. Oh, they went away for a weekend. Now they're an expert. Seriously? Okay. Right. So on Nobelia, you're an aspirant for as long as it takes. Some never get to be new nobles, and they say, I just don't have everything. I'm working on it. Maybe I don't get there before I die, but that's okay. They're aware that this is not something that's likely to happen, and they're okay with it, right? Because all new nobles are aspirants forever. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Norma, just comment here where you at now. That's fine. If you can hear me, I read your comments, so comment here, and it's still being shared, so not a problem, Norma, not a problem. You just comment here in Messenger, no worries. All right. So this point of you're an aspirant, and this is like real serious training, right? I mean, you really are working at it day in, day out. But it's years and years before becoming a new noble, right? It takes a long time. It's a lot, a lot, a lot to learn, right? And like I say, it can take the greater portion of a lifetime sometimes, or a substantial portion of your lifetime, right? Like, I don't know what the average would be. uh, I would say likely not less than a decade on average. Think about that. You're doing something, a particular focus from when you wake up to when you go sleep, right? Now, normally, if you're learning a skill, you're learning to play tennis or golf or whatever, if you do it from morning till night, your learning curve is greatly accelerated as to somebody, going to lessons twice a week, yeah, which is the usual typical once a week, right? There's a huge difference. And that's just, like when you're going for lessons like twice a week, it's typically an hour lesson or something, right? But think of when you're doing stuff 16 hours a day. And I'm saying, taking this into consideration, I'm still thinking about a decade, because there's practice, there's application, right? There's a ton to learn, right? So to become a new noble, so it's just huge amount of stuff involved. Very, very powerful. Yeah. Yeah. No worries, Norma. No worries at all. Absolutely no worries. Like I said, you comment here in Messenger. I see it come up, right? It puts a little red dot next to your name there, and then I see it, right? So no problem. Uh, all right. So this point about, learning and training, when it's our life passion, it's a big deal. And of course, like Sher said, it's a need. But we have livelihood to take care of, so we don't get to spend 16 hours a day. Well, we do. We need to learn how to take our livelihood and to extract that value from it, and to make everything we do be pertinent and relevant to our greater goal. It can be done, right? And it's very powerful when you do that. All right. So now we're getting to some story part here. But this is the capital R reading. There's much that's implied, right? So they don't leave anything out or undone when they can. Illuminia said enthusiastically. Now, I didn't say that with the appropriate enthusiasm that Illuminia would have. Yes, at capital B balance, capital B balance. But what I mean is, sure, that when it comes to, okay, I've got to do livelihood stuff, right? Like in my case, I sell stuff on eBay, right? So there's like inventory management. Ask Bina how much fun and joy and moreness we got out of inventory management. I'm trying to say is, when we develop the skill, we can transform the mundane into the sublime, because it's only a perspective shift away, right? The sublime is in the mundane. It's just one perspective shift away. That's it. You just have to tweak it a little bit. So when we understand this power of perspective shifting, we learn to take ordinary mundane things, and we transform them into the sublime, and we end up with great joy and great moreness and great value. And to realize that what we are in, especially if we've been living with attunement, and whatever, like in this case, what I'm doing now, which is where my chief source of income is, right? This is something that came completely and utterly from attunement, right? Just like a gift from the universe, right? Totally appropriate. But also, it is the fulfillment of a long term intent that I've had all my life, right? And I went through many iterations of trying to fulfill and satisfy this intent. So it's not like I ever gave up on it. I kept at it, kept at it, kept at it, and eventually it materialized, right? A lot of patience and persistence and practice involved. But the key point here is that we can transform the mundane into the sublime. It's a skill, something that we can learn to do. It's very, very powerful, right? All right. There was more on this point. Well, it'll come up if we go back, right? It's so crucial to me to understand that when we are, this is way of impeccability is the baseline. Moreness is about exquisiteness in everything, and the Moreness-Project, right? Of which this is the core main component. What we are doing, this book. I mean, I have it transformed into a course that has questions and tasks and stuff that to do, but this is the Moreness, this is what moreness is all about, right? Understanding how to transform the mundane into the sublime. It's an incredible skill, it's an incredible ability, and that falls under moreness, right? Being exquisite in what we do. She swept her arms around, encompassing more, indicating the giant trees and the forest they carried on their branches. Think of that sentence, right? And the forest they carried on their branches. So you've got these huge trees that are as high as mountains, right? And I mean, just think of it. I mean, I have mountains here by me that I can see. And just imagine a huge tree that's coming from, where the sort of bottom of the mountain going all the way up as high as the mountains, right? With these lateral branches that go into the mountains. This is a massive thing. And then these trees are in a particular shape, right? I mean, they have sub branches, but mainly they've got the big crown at the top, kind of like oak trees. Yes, very similar to oak trees. A big, massive trunk, and then you got that crown, and then it kind of goes sideways from there, right? So, but these are taller in proportion to than an oak tree because of the lateral branches, right? So, if you look at an oak tree, there's a typical ratio from where the that crown is and the trunk and everything, right? But these will have a much higher, longer trunk because of the lateral branches. This it helps them for stability, obviously. And now on that crown, and the branches that go out laterally from horizontally from the crown, they're also connected to the other trees' crowns, right? Making these pathways, roadways, really, because they're pretty broad, between the different crowns, right? And so you got like little suburbs. That's why it's Tree City now, right? But there's a forest on those lateral branches on the crown, a regular forest growing there. And just to give this the indication of the enormity, the size of these giant trees, right? And this whole tree city, in other words, right? They're carrying a forest there, right? These are branches that are growing horizontally, but those horizontal branches are the size of like regular, ordinary big trees, like a sequoia forest or whatever, right? No, it's really, really unbelievable. Yeah, it's an enormous visual. Exactly, sure. It's really fantastic. And it's remember the earlier comment? They love to take things to the maximum, right? And this is part of the maximum. Now, these giant trees were on Nobelia, but but they were already like really much bigger than regular trees, but they weren't quite this big. They were a lot smaller, but they were still giant trees. But because the new nobility helped them to grow, and they really, because gardening is a big passion of theirs, right? It's a very big deal. The whole planet's a garden, right? But they help these trees by training the branches, through their horticultural skill to grow laterally into the mountains, which of course gave them greater stability and they could grow larger. And so this is a big deal, right? I don't know if it's mentioned here or not, but a little bit, yeah. Listen, she entreated. They did as bade. At first, for Ursula and Hala, they only heard the sounds of the forest, the wind through the trees. This is a regular wind, right? You have to tune your ears to your soul, Illuminia explained. What a way to say it, right? So, Illuminia here is very aware that her time is limited. So when she says things, she's saying it in a way that doesn't have a full, long, detailed explanation, which the new nobility are love and are very fond of. And she's also talking to Ayla and Ursula, who she needs to get to them directly, right, quickly. So when you listen, right, and that's a capital L, listen, which is, but she's emphasized it, right? She entreated, right? Listen, she entreated. So there's obviously more to it there, right? And then they just hear, at first, they just hear the sound of the regular forest sounds, right? The birds and whatever, right? Stuff going on, and the leaves and that. But now she's saying, listen, you have to tune your ears to your soul. This is, it may not be accurate, but it's saying listen in a different way, right? So instinctively and automatically, typically how we do when we hear something like this, we shift from what we are doing and we do differently. I may not know how exactly, but I just now start listening differently. And when you pay attention to this, right? Like if you got background music going on, like I do, I've always got background music going on, right? Like right now, music is playing. But I could be like when I'm working, I'll typically be watching TV and working and have the music, right? And it all depends on how and where you tune your ears. Like for instance, if somebody comes on Zoom, okay, I'll put the video off, but I'll still leave the music on. I'm listening to you. I'm giving you my full attention. But I can, if I wanted to, shift to listen to the music, right? You can change your thing. And also, if there's kind of, it's noisy, the wind is blowing, and the music's fairly soft, I can tune into that music. And once I've tuned into it, I'll hear only that, and I won't hear all the other stuff, right? So we have this ability to selectively tune into different sounds or different streams of sounds, right? It's very, very, very fun. Ah, beautiful, Norma. Yes, I agree. Love can never be blocked. Always comes through. Always does. Yeah. Yeah. Most wonderful. All right. So this ability to tune your ears, this is a skill that is very, very useful to cultivate, right? Like if you're at a party and well, a lot of people will know this. You're at a party and your ex is there, right? Now, if you're not with somebody at the party and you hear your ex's voice, what happens to your ears? Right away, you're on the other side of the room, but you're hearing every single thing your ex is saying and whoever's talking to them, right? Yeah. Selective tuning of the ears. Yes. And well, you could say your ears are tuned to your soul because your soul, your deeper self, maybe it wants to know what X is all about. Your soul is about what's important to you. Right. Now, okay, this is not a particularly soulful example, but you get my drift, right? We are able to tune into things in a most remarkable way, right? Like when we look at things too, you can zoom in and focus on it. Yeah, our ears can do the same thing. And this is what Illumina is saying. Shift your ears, hear differently, right? And so they do this. You have to tune your ears to your soul, Illumina explained. Right? Now again, in the narration here, it says Illumina explained. But when we talk, right? If I'm just sharing as a comment, oh, you have to tune your ears to your soul. It's not an explanation of what you need to do, but when you say it in an explanation way, it carries extra moreness to it, right? So there's a lot to communication. So when a writer says this, they are indicating that the person that says this is explaining, and that carries a particular intent to it. Now, I'm okay with my reading skill, but professional readers or actors that do voiceovers, right? When you give them this cue here for explain, they will shift into explain mode, and they'll read that sentence in explain mode, right? And it's very different, right? And your ear will subconsciously hear it differently, right? It's very powerful. This is a communication of intent, in other words. Right, so we need to understand this, right? These are very the subtle morenesses of communication, right? So if you want to do stuff like this, have that anticipation running so that you can consciously do it, right? And be aware of what you're doing, right? Biella smiled with anticipation. That's regular anticipation here. She loved to watch this first time experienced by others. The first time, obviously, of what's to come, right? Ayla and Ursula's faces lit up with delight and astonishment at the same time. Why, but, they exclaimed simultaneously. Illuminia was thrilled. She too loved the spot. She joined in the joyous laughter. Always look how considerate they are. Yes. They don't just explain and say in a boring way. They create the environment in which others can experience this joy and thrill in the best possible way. It's just part of that new nobility, deep, deep, deep consideration. And we worked so hard to raise them. Yes, exactly. And yet, yes, we are stupid. You know, uh, there's one of the magical things that Don Juan said that I love very much. That was something new to me. Much of what he said wasn't. Was stuff that I'd been living and practicing, and it was like der stuff. To me, at least, was der stuff. I knew it's not der generally, but to me. But other things were like, whoa, whoa. And one thing he said is, you have to leave others be. Yeah. He said, and it's he said, it's the hardest thing to leave others be. Sorry, not leave, to let others be. That's the quote. It's the hardest thing to let others be. And it's a particular way of expressing things, right? And just to let others be. He says it's the hardest thing. the most difficult thing of everything, to let others be. It's like, wow, that really was something that surprised me. Now, of course, me, I don't just accept when anybody says that, right? That's on one's opinion and perspective. But he said a lot of other things which I've known before I encountered them from my own research and practice and application, that they are so. So I have some trust in Don Juan's accuracy on such comments. But it doesn't mean that I take it completely on faith. So I pay attention to this in others to just see exactly how accurate this is. And well, I can say I don't know about it being the hardest, but in general, it is for many people. It's certainly way up there, right? It's very, oh, there's Norma now. There's Norma. There you are, Norma. There you are. Now you are this last comment, right? You made it. You said my love can't be blocked. You made it in Messenger and as a comment on the live, which is a post. The live is a post in group, right? So maybe you were on, you know where you may have been, Norma? You may have been on the live on my personal timeline, not in group. That's maybe where you were. That would make sense. But anyway, I'm glad the block is gone now, so that's good. I'm glad you're here. All right, so back to my point that I'm making here about uh oh, I forget where I was. Anyway, doesn't matter. Um, wow, I completely forgot where I was. Anyway, it's an important point that Norma says love can't be blocked. Oh, about leaving others be. Yes. If you watch people, you'll see how this is something very difficult. But when you learn the skill, boy, this is the most profound consideration you can imagine. Yes. And it's very powerful. And of course, this is completely intrinsic in new nobility culture. They have learned to let others be. The entire culture is based on that, right? And they understand why, because of things like understanding the effort reward circle. Yeah, that's it. Once you understand that, and you understand motivations and deeper intents, and you understand conditioning and should and habits, when you understand, can leave others be. Very important, right? I was talking about this to some extent with Jessica. Sure. So very cool conversation. She was on Zoom earlier. Pleasure, Norma. Pleasure, marvelous, Norma. All right. All right. So now Illumina is explaining about the trees and the sound. There are some very sophisticated acoustics, sound properties, and a whole range of complicated technical factors involved. She's talking about what they heard, right? So first they just heard the forest, then they heard a Moreness, right? And she's explaining this now, right? So she's referencing what they've experienced. So if you read this just in isolation, it's sort of like, where's she coming from? But it's going to explain itself if you persist. Now, this is something I want to just point out to you, a very useful factor. This, something I really learned and paid attention to when reading Shakespeare. I really enjoyed Shakespeare, and at some point, I read entire complete works of Shakespeare. Actually, I've read it twice. Right? I really enjoy Shakespeare. But in order to enjoy Shakespeare, there's something very, very important that you have to do. Well, a couple of things. One, you have to learn to figure things out in context. Now, this was a skill that I'd already developed before coming to Shakespeare. But the other key point is you've got to be able to wait and hold what's been said kind of in your mind's RAM, in kind of temporary, right? Temporary awareness, immediate now awareness, but not process it yet. Just hold it there. It's going to be explained later on. It's like this, right? Yeah, there are some sophisticated sound properties and a whole range of complicated technical factors involved. What is she talking about? Don't get stuck there. Just say, okay, I know it's going to be explained later on. So you just kind of hold it in awareness, right? And this is absolutely critical for Shakespeare. And many things are like that, right? Especially when it comes to people. They will say things in them, they know what they're talking about. And yes, they're going to explain, it always comes a bit later. But if you get stuck on trying to figure this out on its own, you don't have enough context, you don't have enough information, and your brain is going to get subverted and get stuck here, right? And I don't know what's going on, I get stuck, and then you can't hear what comes later on because your brain is now stuck on you not understanding. So just chill. If you don't understand, just wait. It's going to be explained later on, right? Usually, right? Usually it will make sense when you have more context and more understanding, right? So just give it some space. Give it some space. Uh, and it's very important, particularly in Shakespeare. That's how he writes for the most part. He says it in all complicated, and then and why is it so important in Shakespeare particularly? Because Shakespeare wrote for the okay, the old nobility, but also the intellectuals and whoever, right? He wrote for them in a very particular way, but also the hoi polloi, the common people, would come to his shows, his performances, right? And they were called the peanut gallery because if they didn't like stuff, they would throw peanuts, right, as a way of protest at the actors, right? And that's where the term peanut gallery comes from. But these are very rough, very unsophisticated. And so he would say things in this fancy, wonderful way for all the intellectuals and then you know, the important, supposedly important people, right, who thought of themselves as important, obviously, but this made them feel, oh, wonderful. Oh, look, I can get it. I'm sophisticated, blah, 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 right? So he was appeasing them, and that's their entertainment. But then he would say it in a very rough, ordinary way later on for that side of the audience, right? So he wrote in a particular way to satisfy the whole range, which of course, if you take modern writing, they'll tell you, don't do this, right? Don't try and write for everybody. Find your audience, write for your audience, right? And it is generally very good advice. To do that, to write for the entire range of audience is exceedingly difficult. Yes, takes a very particular skill. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He had a sense of romance wrapped up in intricate problems. Exactly. And he would have profound themes and he would have very basic common themes, very raw, rough, and very very common type humor sometimes thrown in, and of course romance, right? So he'd say all this fancy stuff, but it's a love story, Romeo and Juliet or whatever, right? It's a love story, and this is satisfying the whole range of audiences on all levels. It's incredible, Shakespeare. At some point, it would be fun to do a capital R reading of Shakespeare, right? Because the artistry in Shakespeare is phenomenal. It's just really, really fun, right? But it requires a particular. You have to be able to do capital R reading on the fly to really enjoy a Shakespeare performance. If you're reading it for yourself, of course, you can slow it down. So that'd be a good idea to take one of his shorter plays, like the comedies, and do that. That'd be very cool. That'd be very cool. All right. Actually, now that I think of this is something that I would like to do. Right? Like All's Well That Ends Well. I think that's one of these shorter ones. I mean, one of those, right? Romantic comedies. Uh-huh. Um, Okay, so we're on this paragraph here where Illumina is saying things, then now just wait for it to come clear later on. There are some very sophisticated acoustic sound properties and a whole range of complicated technical factors involved. Many new nobles were involved in this massive project. Many still monitor it. What you hear are thousands of wind chimes, all sizes, from many different materials. Right? So there's the start explanation that explaining the first part of that paragraph, right? And I said, oh, she's talking about them. What they first heard was the forest, and then when they tuned in, they could hear the chimes, right? So obviously the chimes are very soft relative to the forest, right? Very soft, right? It's just, I mean, if you're thinking of a sound that's lying underneath the birds and the sound of the regular wind in the leaves and stuff, right? That's that's quite something. It's very subtle, in other words, right? The overwhelming majority are made from wood. The non-wood chimes are in about the same ratio as you would find those elements in a tree. The wooden ones are from woods all over the ag. There are some extremely exotic chimes out there. And the reason they're from all over the ag is because of the sound acoustic properties that they want, right? But they're trying to keep it in balance, but there's a moreness to this, right? There's different woods and different sounds, right? So it adds to the moreness going all the way, but the magic is in how they work. All right, so yeah, it's very interesting. Yes, Norma, it would be absolutely. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to do. Um, but the magic is in how they work. Yes, they are wind chimes, but they aren't rung by a free swinging pendulum moving in the wind. Yeah, because that's you there's of course, now it's the strength of the wind that matters to how loudly the chime sounds. And this is going to throw out how you can control the sound volume level, right? So these now are different, right? The ringer is an electromagnet. Its movement governed by the tree's movement. Yeah. So now you can understand how it can be a lot softer because the wind is making the trees move, and that's the movement is a much subtler part relative to the actual wind itself, right? The tree is fairly stable, and if it's a breeze, the tree doesn't move very much at all. Yeah. So that's why are able to regulate this volume. So now it's like she's explaining, but you also can put it together a bit. Ah, I get it now. But what I want to really emphasize is to not get stuck when you don't understand. Like you could have gotten stuck on this sentence here, right? There are some very sophisticated acoustic sound problems. All right. At that point, we didn't know what she was talking about, but now it all starts to fall into place, right? And this is very often so in language, in sharing and communication. Things don't always come out in kind of a linear order, a logical order, right? It's all massive information and it needs to be processed in its entirety, not sequentially. This is a very, 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 very useful and powerful skill, right? Because if you try and process everything sequentially, expecting it to be logically, you get stuck on, I don't understand, I don't understand, I don't understand, right? And you get stuck. And then, of course, you close your ears. The moment you start focusing on what the hell are they saying there? What the hell? This doesn't make any sense. And all that typical stuff. The moment you start doing that, you close your ears. Right? So capital H hearing is particularly to absolutely uh, I don't like to say master or mistress. I just say to wizard the skill, right? To absolutely own the skill, right? To really have it fully at your command. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is, right? Uh, uh, yes and no, Norma, to your question. Was the sound enlarged by the trees? It will be. So hang in a second there. We're going to get to that part, right? Now, at the moment, it's just a regular wind blowing and the sound is not enlarged. It's actually lessened, right? Because of the electromagnetics involved. It's a program, there's electronics involved. So in with regular wind, the sounds of the chimes are lessened to be below the level of the sound of the birds and the leaves, right? Okay, we'll see. Just hang in there with that question, Norma. So now here's a good opportunity. Hold your question in mind while I read the rest of this, right? And then you'll see the answer to your question. Right? The ringer is electromagnetic. It's an electromagnet. Its movement governed by the tree's movement. The part of the tree it's connected to, not the wind directly. The smaller the chime, generally the further they are from the trunks and the huge branches. Right? So your treble chimes, your that little ting ting, the very fine sounds, those are the very ends of the branches, right? Because those are very delicate sounds, very tiny sounds, right? And so they can go when it's only a little tiny breeze, you hear this delicacy, yes, which is appropriate, right? As breezes are very delicate sometimes. Truly try and pay attention to breezes. As a meditation, I highly, highly, highly recommend going out in the mornings, right? And just at that time, just after sunrise, right? That time, right? And when the birds are waking up and all that, even just slightly before sunrise, right? That time, early morning, in other words, there's quite a range there. But go out and just close your eyes and get into meditation mode, right? We have nothing else. And all you're doing is listening, capital L, listening to the breeze. Listen to what the breeze is sharing and communicating. Listen as if the breeze is communicating from some entity, right? Doesn't matter what the entity is, irrelevant. Listen as if you are listening to a particular mood, a vibe, a communication. Right? It's not going to say things in words, but it's a communication. You're going to be astonished at how in that early morning there's that very slight breeze. How it's completely different from day to day. Sometimes it's going to be repeat, obviously, but you're going to be astonished at the range of what you hear. Right? So don't take my word for it. Go and try it and test it. Right? But you've got to be open to hearing that moreness that is being communicated by the breeze, right? And it is, again, it's very much like the sound that's below your regular awareness. You have to tune into it, right? Very powerful. So breezes are super delicate, super profound, right? And when you start to hear breezes, that delicacy, that exquisiteness, oh man, your whole ability to hear in general is going to be profoundly enhanced. Yeah. So this is one of the uh, tasks and exercises in the Moreness-Project. I think it comes in capital H hearing. I don't remember where it is exactly. It's in there somewhere. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Breezes are absolutely phenomenal, and they're just wonderful. There's so much into them. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, Norma, not the actual literal sounds. Capital H, hear a breeze. You are hearing the breeze come with conceptions, moods, attitudes, vibes, styles, importances. You're hearing abstract stuff, right? You're hearing communication, not literal sounds. Yes, right? Yes, that's also useful to be able to hear a leaf fall. Yes, but I'm talking about tuning into communication, capital C communication, right? So it's the you hearing intent of the breeze. That's what you're really tuning into, and you're going to be astounded at the range and variety of intents that breezes, particularly early morning breezes, have. Right, and they can help you to really set a mood and a tone for the day that's in attunement with that breeze, which is very helpful. Very helpful. They're always very positive, very, very positive, almost always, right? So this is a profound thing, Norma. It's really a moreness thing to do, right? Not listening to mood, emotion, intent, energy. Yes, it's something special, something special. A very spiritual activity. Yeah, very, very spiritual. Because what you are hearing is the world, capital W world. Right? You'll see in my writing, I differentiate between little w world and capital W world, right? So the world is a moreness that has its own understanding, awareness, etc. Right? And breezes are one of the ways to hear the world. Yeah. And well, winds also, but breezes in particular. You get to hear the depths and the nuance. All right. So the smaller the chime, generally the further they are from the trunks and the huge branches. Those further out chimes will respond to multiple movements. So if the trunk is swaying, it may set up a steady, slow beat or rhythm. The movement of the huge branches will be overlaid, then the smaller branches, and so on, right? So if you think of that, if you actually just look at the movement of the leaves and the tips of the branches, right? The little tiny twigs, right, at the very end there now, right? When you look at that, you'll see the pattern is part of a larger pattern. It's like if I'm dancing and I'm moving my arm, right? My body's moving, but my arm is moving in a greater response to that, right? But the arm movement still reflects my body's slight movement. Like if you watch people tuning into music, right? You'll see them going to a bigger rhythm, but then they may be going, see, the double rhythm. My body's moving slower. The hand has got the double beat on top of the rhythm of the body. Yes, right. Same thing with the leaves and branches. Now, because these electromagnetics are tuned into the movement, that little chime now at the very end is going to pick up that bigger beat, like my body. Doom, 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 ding, 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 ding. See, double. I can't make the sounds twice at once there, but you see, you get my point, right? So you're going to have the chime reflecting that deeper pattern, right? And the tiny pattern. Yes, it's all in that sound range, but this is all part of the greater. And as you go closer, the chimes are going to get heavier and more bass, right? So she's also now you can extrapolate from this that the trees that are closer to the trunk, like those huge ones that come up later. Like, I mean, these massive, great big sequoia-sized trees made into wind chimes, right? So you got like a bunch of these all there arranged together. And, wind chimes, by the way, well-made wind chimes are tuned in such a way that you can't have sound discordance, which is why you can listen to wind chimes all the time. Poorly made wind chimes is just taking something that makes a sound, and they aren't actually tuned to specific notes that harmonize with each other. You're going to hear discordant sounds, but most wind chimes are the where the sound is tuned specifically so that it's not discordant, right? But anyway, so obviously you get the bass more into the thing, and this is going to make up your symphony later on, right? Wind chime symphony. So she doesn't elaborate on that, but she just says, right, it's that the further out the higher, right? So you can figure it out for yourself that going closer will be deeper, of course. Elluminia was enjoying herself. Yes, Norma, I am describing heaven. Yes, Norma, I am. Nobelia is an incredible place. This is just one aspect of Nobelia. Yeah, they're making an effort to take things to the maximum. So Nobelia is absolutely heaven, and this is a particular. If you love trees, this was somebody's idea of heaven, right? That like their fantasy that they wanted to implement. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely, Norma. This is exactly, what makes the new nobility so special is that they implement these ideas, right? This idea of a tree city, this fantasy. And then, wow, never mind just living there, right? But now they take it further to have the forest be able to communicate. Well, we're going to come to this. We're going to come to this. It's just, this is so huge, right? Because again, it's not only the story of the chimes and the great wind, but it's a story about the greater intent of the new nobility. Remember the intent of the story, right? Don't forget the center column. Why has the story been written? It's way back originally in the introduction. It has been written to show a philosophy, to demonstrate it in action. Not just to say, this is what we like to do, this is ideal, this is a good way of doing things, this is recommended. No, to write it theoretically is little value. Showing it, right? This mindset of doing things thoroughly all the way. How is that not an application of impeccability, right? Being scrupulous, diligent, conscientious, thorough, right? These are inherent to way of impeccability. Now, take your dreams, your capital D dreams. Remember, Biella says, "Can you relish the dream?" Well, the new nobility absolutely relish their dream. So somebody has this dream of living in the forest, like elves, right? Or tree houses, take it to the right. So what do? They take it to the maximum, and they develop Tree City, right? And not just just a place to live, no, but adding to it, being able to connect and talk to it, like right, like the elves. They in most of your elvish fantasy stories, typically, and I'm not talking about Keebler elves, which aren't real elves, right? That's just an abomination, right? That's just an idiotic variation. Actually, that's somebody confusing elves with gnomes, by the way. Just if you're not into law and fantasy stuff, okay? Uh, Keebler elves, Christmas elves are actually gnomes, not elves. Somebody mislabeled them. Elves are like forest people, tall and spiritual, and they connect to the forest, and they can usually talk to the trees and the forest in some way. There's some measure of communication to greater or lesser extent, right? And this is very powerful. I mean, in some elvish legends and traditions, they are able to transform themselves into trees, right? And it's part of your, like you part of the forest. You just like have become a part that can move around on its own, right? But you also sometimes go and you tree and you become a tree. Anyway, I won't get too involved in law. But the point why I'm getting involved in law and LORE as a generic term for stories of this kind, right? And not just fantasy stories, but laws, like the history of it and the depth of it and all that, right? Law is a very big part in gaming, by the way, right? Most games have the law that goes along with it, and it's like a sub part of it that you can get involved in or not. But it's very important to most games, right? The law of the game, very important. So this is somebody saying that they had this idea, this fantasy of this tree world, right? And we're going to make it happen. And they make it happen. This is part of the new nobility mourners culture. They make it happen. They make that fantasy happen. It's really powerful, right? And we can do that. We just have to have the will to do it, right? Elluminia was enjoying herself. There was so much to this, so much magic and wonder, so much joy and marvel. Many have described what you are hearing, when you listen and tune in, as a multitude of flying fairies laughing. Yeah. Now, that's a nice visual because it's a delicacy, right? Because right now it's just a regular wind, so you are just hearing the chimes that are more on the outskirts, right? The treble chimes, maybe in the mid range a little bit here and there, but still it's light, it's delicate, and because as she's about to explain, you'll hear, to get you to hear it at all without it being a cacophony is part of the incredible design. Like I said, that tuning to make sure it can all work in concordance. First, they set the sound in such a way it blends with the forest and the tree. That's a volume adjustment, right? And of course, the type of sound as well, right? And typically these treble chimes will be your more metal chimes, right? As well. But they have them all. They have metal chimes, but typically a slightly higher proportion there. One has to deliberately shift attention to hear it. That's the key part, right? And again, here we get an application and implementation of the deep, profound consideration, capital C consideration, that is core to everything the new nobles do, right? So somebody loves chimes, and wow, this would be cool to have chimes. Yeah, but not all the time, right? See? So now you are saying, yeah, but I like it and you don't. Okay, let's set it in such a way that for those who like it, they can tune into it, like background music, right? It's very soft and it doesn't really, but when I tune into it, I hear it very clearly. Okay, so it gives me the choice and the option. Or if I tune into whatever else, then I don't hear it, right? Not a problem. Okay. One has to deliberately shift attention to hear it. When one does, as you have just heard, the effect is stupendous. It is done this way for the residents. They can choose to tune in or not. Now, two things there. It's not only the consideration, but also it says that those living there have the skill of selective attention, particularly when it comes to sound. Right? It's a skill, and we have to develop it. Right? And sometimes people don't, they can't, they unfortunately overemphasize what they don't want to hear, and they get immersed in that, and then they get all put out of shape because now they're constantly hearing what they don't want to hear, right? So there's a bit of character involved in this as well, right? It's very important to understand the power of emphasis. Yes, because otherwise you start tuning into what you don't want to hear to try and make it go away, and the more you try and suppress it and push it down, the stronger you make it via emphasis, right? So there's a sophistication involved in this simple little skill, right? Lots of sophistication involved. However, when a great wind comes, all bets are off. Then the chimes are released, as the locals call it. What a fantastic visual. Just a description, right? The chimes are released, right? And that's really, I guess that's a capital C chime there, right? Because these chimes aren't ordinary chimes. The chimes are released, as the locals call it, right? I just love this, this is saying, yeah, like you're talking a conversation. Oh yeah, and then the chimes are released, and the chimes are released. I don't know. I just like this the moreness of it, and it's just the law connectivity, as the locals call it, right? Then there's the attunement with all the other chimes. Now this is regular attunement. It's all are synced with each other within the maximum typical range of the sound of the chime. Every now and then one hears a chime like a solo. That is when the sound is caught by the wind. Not the chime, but the sound. Much like you can smell things, right? And like in the comics books, you always see that meandering little line of the smell coming in and passes by your nose, right? And that's because it's being moved by the air currents and stuff, right? Now, if there's wind, of course, the smell just gets dispersed immediately. But when there's no wind, the air current's still going on, right? And it's just flowing. So this is the same thing right? Sometimes when you out, you can hear something that you sort of shouldn't hear. Why? Because it got caught by the wind and it happened to be coming along and caught by your ear. You were in the right place at the right time, right? So this is very cool. It's very cool part that you hear these solos sometimes, right? Much like in an orchestra, right? And this happens, and it's a very cool thing, right? When your ear happens to be in its path, Elluminia chuckled at the thought. The sync is set so that the chimes feed off of each other. Now here we get that moreness that Elluminia said earlier, right? She said the new nobles. Where's that? Uh, The new nobles do nothing casually, right? Do not they love to take things to the maximum, to not leave anything out or undone. And here we are, this maximum coming into it now, right? That they are saying it so that the chimes feed off of each other. Let's see. Right. There's this attunement with all the other chimes as all are synced to each other within the maximum typical range of the sound of the chime. Oh, they sync the sync is set so that the chimes feed off of each other. The actual sound itself, by way of the vibrations, affects the other chimes. So this is very important, right? So when sound is you're only hearing it because of how it vibrates through the air. Right? It's very important to understand. That's why when you watch any space movie from now on, and the Enterprise blows up a spaceship, there's no sound. Sound doesn't travel through a vacuum. Why? Because it can't vibrate. There's no medium for it to vibrate in the vacuum. That's why sound is different in water, because it vibrates slower and differently in water, right? So this is very important. But now they are saying, because they understand that sound is just also a vibration beside being an electromagnetic wave. It resonates with the air, and that vibration is what causes you to hear it. They're going to use that vibration and have the vibrations sync to each other and feed off each other, right? So now you get a different element without just the sound, the wave part of it, right? You're getting the vibration part of it. And this is, if you watch deaf people, yes, they will respond to big sounds even though they can't hear them. Why? Because they feel them. They feel the vibration. Yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. When you observe, pay attention. Yeah. When I grew up, there was a large school for the deaf. Actually, the largest one in the southern hemisphere was in the town that I lived in, and the largest school for the blind in the southern hemisphere, both in the same town, very particular town, Worcester. I don't know if it's still true or not, but it was certainly true then. So, when I went to Sunday school, for instance, deaf kids there, blind kids there, and you see them in the street. Obviously, we didn't do much sports with the school for the blind, but certainly we played against the school for the deaf, and that was quite fascinating, to watch them, because of course they don't hear the whistle always, so somebody had to touch them and grab them. But of course, sometimes you have a bit of a naughty one, and they would just conveniently not hear the whistle or pay attention. So very interesting stuff. But you see them respond to vibration, and I think that's what you're saying, right? Too. Right. So, but be aware that of course, for when you're deaf, this is very important, right? It's part of your perception of the world around you. Right, like when the door comes crashing down, you're responding to that crash. Something is typically up if you're feeling it vibrating. But this is the mechanism they're using here as well. Sound plus vibration, right? So by way of the vibration affects the other chimes. It's a kind of ripple effect, like waves in a pond. They will run across the forest. So now we're seeing this moreness come in again. The new nobles who set this up, they didn't just want you to hear chimes, a whole lot of them going off together. They wanted the chimes to be like stereo, but not just stereo, quadraphonic, not just quadraphonic, but what would be a word for 360? 360-onic. There must be a word. Omnionic, I guess, right? But they wanted it to be where, stereo, like if you listen to stereo, the sound goes between you hear but yeah, you hear but there, and sometimes you hear it moving across, right? across your brain. And in good stereo, if you've got a good headset system, especially, it's hard to hear with speakers, but on a headset, you can hear sounds behind you, and a surround sound. That's it, right? Surround sound. If you got a surround sound system and you're watching the movie, and there's something behind you supposed to be, right? You hear it behind you. It's really phenomenal. It's really excellent, good surround sound. They wanted the same surround sound effect, but where the sounds are, you hear it moving from one side to the other, not just left, right, but up, down, across, sideways, in any way you can imagine, right? So this is they've set up the sound specifically that when something happens in the vibration, it affects the change, and it sets up a movement, a directional movement of sound, right? And the chimes start to feed off of each other, and you get the sound running across the forest in these different directions. What a fantastic moreness, right? There's a kind of ripple effect like waves in a pond. They will run across the forest, be added to from new wind gusts, amplified when the waves overlap, right? So now, if you know wind, you know it doesn't just come from one direction. If you've ever sailed, you'll know that wind, it's more or less in a general direction, but in that there's the wind has little different directions to some variation, right? And you exploit those in order to sail better, right? That's a long story, but paying attention to the nuance of the particular gusts, this is very key, right? It makes a huge difference in sailing. It's all about it. But when you know this and realize this, as in this case, they are going to maximize those the gusts coming in at a slightly different direction, and it will give you this movement, sound movement effect. Very, very, very cool, right? And amplified when the waves overlap, right? When you're sailing too, the wind is blowing, and they'll typically say, okay, the wind is blowing whatever, 40 knot wind. Okay, that's a pretty strong wind, right? But it's not constant. It varies tremendously, right? And gusts can be way more, way less, right? So there's a lot of variation within wind. Again, pay attention and start hearing winds. You'll notice all these nuances, right? Because that same nuance goes into what people say, what they do, that whole range of complexity. We don't just do things on like one thing, right? There's variations within the greatness of what we're doing. That's why the sound and the feel of it all, so much more than just sound, and is such an incredible surrounding, all-encompassing and spiritual experience. That's why the sound, this was something I had to edit here. That's why the sound and the feel of it, so much more than just sound, is such and is superfluous there, right? Right? It changes the grammar, right? That's why the sound and the feel of it all, so much more than just sound, is such an incredible surrounding, all encompassing and spiritual experience. Yeah? Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, exactly. We can hear without ears via our brain. And that's why Elluminia said in that instruction there, hear with your soul, right? What did she say? How did she say it exactly? Uh, it's tune your ears to your soul. This is what capital H hearing is all about. To hear more than just sound, not just hear vibration, but of course to hear implication, consequence. Yes, moreness. Yes, connectivity. Hear what things are connected to. Hear what's implied. Hear what's not said. Hear the silences. In other words, hear what's absent, what's missing. Right. So, but you can start off by just listening to the sounds of the world, like listening to wind. You're going to realize, wow, yeah. At first, it was just like shh. Oh, there's a hell of a lot more to that just basic white noise, right? It's an incredible thing. It's an incredible thing, this ability to hear, hear more, hear without the ears, to hear, capital H hearing, by the way, right? If in the actual program, show will tell you, right? Is that it's about hearing there's more than just sounds. You're going to hear with your eyes. You're going to hear with your smell. You're going to hear with taste. You're going to hear with your skin. You're going to hear with your heart, with your soul, with your intent, right? So it's really capital H hearing is actually about perception, right? So I just use hearing because we are eye dominated. visually dominated. This is just how we are set up to be. But hearing, because hearing is 360, yes, where your eyes aren't. Eyes is, it's not it technically 180, but not quite, right? Technically, we just tend to see what we are looking at, which is very different, right? And you develop wide vision, but hearing, it's 360, yeah? Well, so we smell, taste not, but feel also, it is more direct. But hearing is very profound in that it is has this 360 quality to it, yeah? And when you start with that, you learn to hear and extend your perception of your environment, right? Because we're visually focused. When I hear sound behind me, yes, and I recognize the sound, what happens in my brain? I typically get a picture of what I'm hearing. Yes, you get the visual that goes along with it. May not be very clear visual depending on the individual, but it's associated. So when the point of using hearing is to say, don't just be so visual, learn to perceive, in other words. And then as we get more sophisticated, like with the wind, you learn to feel it. Yes, and that morning meditation I recommended of listening to the breeze. Yeah, this is you're gonna feel, you're gonna hear with your soul, and connect your ears to your soul. And that's very powerful, right? Now, in this case, you also, when you're feeling that breeze, because you're outside doing this, and I recommend doing it outside, because you need to feel like the temperature and everything, right? And when you connect your skin, your entire perception capability, and you completely now are perceiving with your soul, huh, man, magical stuff. Magical, magical, magical stuff, right? Super, super awesome. That's why the sound and the feel of it all, so much more than just sound, is such an incredible, surrounding, all encompassing, and spiritual experience. Actually, this needs to be capital E experience. It's not an ordinary experience, it's a capital E experience. That's why that comma's there. You hear sounds moving along, say behind you. They pass and move away in front of you. But simultaneously, there are sounds coming up from below, from the sides, moving away you and away from you. Right? Now, imagine if you are in an orchestra, and the orchestra is not all there in the orchestra pit sitting there, but this orchestra is like you're in a massive auditorium, and the players are spread out all across the audience. Yes, and the sound is written in such a way that the instruments will be playing, and like the violin will go and there'll be a responding violin and another responding violin, and then man, just it would be phenomenal. Anyway, this is what the sound is like here, right? It's unbelievable. It's coming from all sides, moving towards you and away from you, swirling, diving, careening, cascading, an incredible multi-movement of sound. You know, this is what happens when we actually listen and we are hearing what people are saying. There's this multi-movement of what they say, right? They say this and that and that and that, even though they're just talking about a story in their minds, but they say so much more than just what they are saying in words, right? So when we learn to hear these multi-movements, we are hearing these multi-perceptions, multi-communications all going on at the same time. You hear them, feel them, respond to the other sounds. You hear them, feel them. You feeling them, respond to the other sounds. They form choruses, sometimes solos, mass choirs. Sometimes it seems as if the entire forest is not only resonating with sound, but moving and dancing. Not just the sounds themselves, the beautiful, gorgeous, spontaneous melodies, but the movements of those sounds. They go up, down, across, around, in any pattern of movement one can imagine. Elluminia gasped for breath, her excitement for the topic grabbing hold of her completely. Right? And I'm going to stop there for today because now we're still not getting to the most incredible part of it, right? She's just describing the regularness of symphonic sound, right? This is what she's describing in its entirety. But the symphony that's all around you, like above you, below you, right? And the sounds are set up. The symphony is written in such a way that the instruments, play with the movement of sound. Like, and you get this in when you're listening to stereo recordings, surround sound, right? They are deliberately engineering this to create movement, yeah. And you don't often get movement music that does it to this degree, a little bit sometimes, but this is taking it to the ultimate, right? And so they're not just making sound that sounds pretty, but they're also providing sound movement as part of the joy, as an extra dimensionality to the experience, right? So you've got already three things. We're hearing just regular sound, then we're hearing the sound move, and we're also feeling the sound. Right? So kind of different complexities involved, right? Really, really cool. Really, really cool. The moreness. And that's what I wish to. Sure says my connection is spotty. I'll come to listen to the last part. All right, sure. I'm about to end, sure. I'm about to end. And tomorrow we'll get into it more. Right. So I'm just trying to emphasize in this project, you get to see the moreness of the new nobility. Yeah, how they are so incredibly profound and deep and sublime in what they do. Yes, they didn't just put wind chimes in the forest on a forest-wide scale. No, they went more, and then they went more again, and they went more again, and they went more again. And it's just like, man, so much moreness. It's profound. It's profound. It's profound, right? So we're gonna come up to the moreness on top of the moreness tomorrow, right? It's magical stuff. And if we don't get to finish here, I might do an extra one on Saturday, right? Because this is a very cool chapter. This and we skipped on Tuesday, you see. So this is too wonderful. All right, thank you, Sher, for being here. Thank you, Norma, for being here, and just thank you for participating and sharing. It's an inordinate gift to me. Yeah, it's a magical thing, and of course, Norma, just the love. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing, Norma. Like you said, it can't be blocked. It's fantastic. All right. On that wonderful note, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. Stop share and meeting for all. Yeah. Bye bye, everybody.